My hand trembled as I raised the champagne flute, the soft clinking of glass echoing through the golden-lit banquet hall like a warning bell I was the only one hearing. Dozens of familiar faces surrounded us, our children, old friends, neighbors who had watched our marriage bloom for 4 decades. Everyone smiling. Everyone fooled. Lisa stood beside me in that emerald green dress she bought just last week, though, judging by the secret bank account I uncovered, she could have afforded a dozen more. Her fingers brushed against my back with that old affectionate ease, like she hadn't been bleeding me dry for years behind my back. Like she wasn't the cold-blooded thief I now knew her to be. 40 years, I said, my voice cracking slightly. What a ride. They laughed, lifted glasses. A few teared up. Lisa turned to me, her eyes glistening, fake, polished, like everything else about her now. What none of them knew, not even my own son sitting 2 tables away with his wife and kids, was that in my coat pocket rested a crisp federal subpoena, issued 2 days ago, addressed to Lisa Foster, signed by a special agent from the White-Collar Crimes Division of the FBI. She had no idea. Not yet. But that's not where this story begins. It begins in the dark. In our basement, to be exact. 6 months ago. I couldn't sleep. One of those nights when the past clings to your skin like sweat. So I got up, went downstairs to sort through old files, mostly junk I kept meaning to shred. That's when I found the green banker's box, labeled Zez Lights. I opened it expecting tangled cords and broken bulbs. What I found instead was a neat row of opened envelopes, all addressed to her. All from the Social Security Administration. I blinked, pulled one out, then another, and another. The date stretched back years. Each one a check, issued to me, cashed by her. I sat down on the cement floor, holding them in my lap like they were shards of something I'd shattered but didn't remember breaking. My first instinct was denial. There had to be some explanation. A clerical error. Maybe she moved the funds to a joint account? But the account numbers weren't ours. They were from a bank in Idaho. A place we'd never lived. A place she never told me she'd been. The next day I waited until she went to her book club. I later found out that was a lie too, and drove to the bank listed on one of the statements. I posed as her. Don't ask me how. I was angry and desperate and very, very quiet. That's how men like me survive. I didn't shout or scream. I asked questions. I smiled. I let them talk. And I learned everything. Lisa had opened the account in her maiden name. Had a mailing address tied to a P.O. box 2 towns over. Had been cashing my checks, my retirement checks, every month for over 6 years. Over $80,000. I drove home with the window down, my mouth dry, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The world didn't make sense anymore. She still greeted me at the door like nothing was wrong. You want pork chops tonight, she said. I kissed her forehead and said yes. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me still wanted it not to be real. But it was. Every day after that, I peeled back another layer. I checked old tax returns. I hired a private investigator. I even contacted a friend from my Army days who now works with federal enforcement. And as the weeks passed, the puzzle sharpened into a blade. She wasn't just stealing money. She was preparing for something. An exit plan. Maybe. A second life. I found emails. One in particular, sent to a name I didn't recognize, D. Heller. The message was short. I've almost got enough. Don't do anything until I say. Sent 3 months before our anniversary. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I waited. I smiled more. I played the doting husband. Let her think I was planning the perfect party, inviting old friends, renting a ballroom, ordering food from her favorite caterer. All the while I fed every scrap of evidence to my guy in the bureau. And I waited for that one phone call. It came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. He didn't say much. Just, we're ready when you are. That was 2 weeks before the anniversary. And now here we are. The toasts, the fake smiles, the lies swimming in champagne. Lisa leans into me and whispers, I love you, babe. You've made me the happiest woman on earth. I tighten my grip around the stem of the glass, heart pounding against my ribs like a drum warning of war. I nod slowly. Because in exactly 34 minutes, the doors to this hall will open. And the FBI will come in. It started with a silence I didn't recognize. A silence that had weight. One that hung in the house like something rotting in the attic, just out of reach, just faint enough to question if it was even there at all. Lisa had always been loud in small ways, humming while folding laundry, clicking her nails against coffee mugs, talking to herself about nonsense while sorting bills. But this silence? It was engineered. I swear she'd started muting herself, moving like a ghost, not to avoid me, but to not trigger suspicion. And I think, deep down, she knew. Not that I had uncovered her lies, but that something was off. The energy between us changed. The rhythm. She began watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd be sitting in my recliner, pretending to nap, and I'd catch her out of the corner of my eye, just standing in the kitchen doorway, staring, as if trying to read my mind, as if waiting for the first sign I'd caught her. And I gave her nothing. That became my role, the nothing. I had to be the same man I'd always been, a little tired, a little slow, a little grateful for the woman who'd taken such good care of him all these years. I had to let her believe I was still blind, still trusting, still in love. It wasn't easy. There were nights I'd lie awake watching her sleep beside me. So peaceful, so smug. I wanted to wake her up and scream in her face. Shake her until the mask cracked. Ask her if the man she emailed was waiting for her somewhere in Idaho. Ask her if he knew about the $50 breakfast we couldn't afford, the new purse she told me was on sale, the way she gaslighted me for years, saying Social Security must have messed up when my payments hadn't arrived. And I believed her. Like a fool. I kept the investigation rolling quietly. I wasn't just going to confront her. I wanted every legal duck in a row. I didn't want some messy divorce where she played the sweet old wife who made a mistake. No. I wanted a courtroom. I wanted agents. I wanted her exposed. I pushed further. Dug into her old laptop, tucked under the bed like she didn't think I'd ever touch it. Password was our wedding anniversary. Typical. That's what makes women like her dangerous. They hide in sentimentality. And the idea that you'd never suspect the woman who cried at your mother's funeral to be gutting your future from the inside. What I found on that laptop shattered the last piece of whatever warmth I had left for her. Bank transfers. To a man named Dale Heller. Multiple ones. Spaced out perfectly to avoid suspicion. The notes were always vague: travel fund, reimbursement, legal help. But the amounts weren't. 500 here, 1,000 there. All from the account tied to my stolen checks. There were photos, too, of her and Dale. Not together in the romantic sense, yet, but standing side by side in front of a condo unit in Boise. That same place I had seen listed in the investigator's report. He wasn't a random fling. He was in on it. Probably her next chapter. The one she was funding with my entire retirement. The rage that rose in me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. I wasn't a violent man. Never had been. Never even raised my voice during our worst fights. But for a split second, I envisioned the whole room at our anniversary party going silent as I played those photos on a screen. Lisa standing there, frozen. Everyone turning. The shame. The unraveling. Her carefully constructed world crashing like glass. But that wasn't enough. That wouldn't leave scars. That wouldn't sting the way she made me sting, month after month, watching our savings dwindle while she swore the government was screwing me over. No, I needed to be colder. More exact. So I called the FBI. And they listened. Apparently, this wasn't their first rodeo with gray widow fraud cases. Older women targeting retirement money, funneling it out, pretending to be caregivers or helpers. But Lisa? Lisa had gone a step further. She was married to me, which made it federal, which made it real. I sent them everything. The emails, the bank transfers, the photos, the Social Security logs. They built a case in under 2 months. I'll never forget the call from Special Agent Miranda. We're ready. We can execute at your discretion. At my discretion. That's when I got the idea. The party. 40 years. It had to be that day. The day she'd expect nothing but praise, a gold necklace, maybe a slideshow of our kids when they were young. The day she would dress up like a queen, bask in admiration, and smile knowing her escape fund was full. But instead of a kiss, I'd give her cold steel. Instead of a toast, I'd hand her judgment. Now, back in the present, she's laughing. Some old friend just made a joke about our honeymoon in Denver, and she's glowing, the image of maternal grace. Our daughter leans in and says, "Dad, you okay?" I nod. Just 31 more minutes. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I sat alone in the garage, engine off, radio humming low through the static, just enough noise to keep my thoughts from slicing me to shreds. A box of decorations sat in the passenger seat. Streamers, banners that read, "Happy 40th," and little custom favors with our names printed in gold script. It felt grotesque, like I was preparing a wake for a woman who wasn't dead, just rotting morally. I thought about backing out. Not because I doubted the facts. The facts were a noose, and she'd braided it herself. But because part of me still carried the weight of our history. You can't share a bed with someone for 4 decades, raise children, survive the death of parents and the birth of grandchildren, and not feel the echo of love, even if it's been poisoned. But then I remembered the lies. The casual cruelty. The month she let me skip doctor visits because we couldn't afford it. The time she screamed at me for asking if I could call Social Security to check the delay. She made me feel incompetent. Small. Like I was some doddering old fool who couldn't keep track of his own paperwork. That was the moment that finally clarified everything. She didn't just steal my money. She stole my dignity, my belief in her, my trust in myself. And for that, there could be no mercy. I called Agent Miranda just after midnight. "Everything's on schedule," I said. "Don't be early. Don't be late. I want the toast to land first." She paused. "You sure you want to be the one to hand her the subpoena?" "Damn right I do." That morning, Lisa hummed in the shower. Same tune she always used when she was nervous and trying to play it cool, Blue Bayou, of all things. I sat in the kitchen nursing black coffee, watching the clock. Every move she made felt choreographed. She picked the earrings I bought her last Christmas. She ironed her favorite dress. She even slipped on that ruby ring I hadn't seen in months, the one I thought she'd lost. Probably pawned it once and bought it back with my stolen checks. She didn't notice me watching. Or if she did, she didn't care. We drove to the event hall in silence. Well, I was silent. She was chatty, rambling about who might show up, whether they'd have enough gluten-free options for her cousin Lori, how proud she was of me for putting the event together so beautifully. "Just don't make me cry during the toast, okay?" she said with a laugh, patting my knee. I looked at her hand and imagined it in cuffs. At the venue, guests trickled in like bees to honey. Every hug she gave made my stomach turn. Every compliment about what a loving couple we were made me want to scream. She worked the room like a politician, laughing, reminiscing, kissing cheeks and spinning tales about our honeymoon, our first apartment, the way I used to bring her coffee in bed. What a show. People ate it up. And me? I played the part. The doting husband. The good man. The idiot. But I was counting down the minutes. Agent Miranda and her team were already nearby, parked in a nondescript black SUV 3 blocks away. I had confirmed the timeline with her that morning, 15 minutes into the speeches. Right after the toast. They'd enter quietly, take their positions, and wait for my signal. Then I'd hand Lisa the subpoena in front of everyone. It wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about truth. Because Lisa didn't just steal from me. She made a career out of pretending to be someone she wasn't. She built her identity on a foundation of performance. But performances only work as long as the audience believes the act. So I was going to end the show. I remember the exact moment everything clicked into place. My son clinked his glass, calling everyone's attention. He gestured to me. "Dad, I think it's time." I rose, heart hammering. I didn't feel fear. I felt electricity. Like something ancient inside me had finally awakened. The man she tried to bury under years of manipulation and guilt? He was back. I stepped forward. Lisa turned to me, eyes glowing, lips parted in anticipation. The crowd quieted. Champagne flutes raised. This was it. The final act had begun. The silence before a toast is unlike any other silence. It's expectant, soft with smiles, light with love. People leaned in, phones out, eyes bright, waiting for another sentimental speech from a devoted husband about how he still remembers the way she looked on their wedding day. But this wasn't that kind of toast. I cleared my throat, let my fingers tap twice on the stem of the flute. That was the signal. I could feel my pulse in my neck, like a second heartbeat. Agent Miranda and her team would be entering the building right now, through the back service hallway. No sirens. No shouting. Just quiet law and order, gliding through shadows like sharks under the surface. Lisa smiled at me. That rehearsed, goddamn practice smile. I remembered the first time she gave me that smile. We were 23. She had on a sundress, and I just offered her the last slice of cherry pie at a church bake sale. That smile had made me believe we were meant for each other. That kind of smile could start wars or end them. Now it made my skin crawl. 40 years, I began, holding my glass up. Murmurs of here, rippled through the room. 40 years with a woman who I believed, until recently, was the most honest, generous soul I'd ever met, who I thought built a life with me based on truth. Lisa tilted her head slightly, smile still in place, but something flickered in her eyes. The first signal, a neuron firing in a different direction. She gave me children, helped raise a family, sat with me through surgeries, laughed with me through setbacks. And I was proud, so proud to call her my wife. I took one step forward. Her smile faltered by a fraction. "But what do you do?" I said, and my voice dropped, low and hard like a hammer laid on the table, "when you realize the person you love the most has been lying to you for years." The room stilled. That sticky, disbelieving silence. Some confused smiles. A few exchanged glances. Lisa's hand tightened around her own glass. "What do you do?" I continued. "When you find out the woman who said she'd grow old with you has been siphoning off your social security checks, month after month, year after year, into a private account she opened under her maiden name." Gasps. A fork clattered to the floor. "And Lisa?" Lisa froze. Not shocked. Not denying. Calculating. That was the moment I knew. I mean, really knew, that she had no remorse. No panic. No shame. She was already strategizing her exit, weighing lies in her head like cards in a blackjack hand. I kept quiet, I said, reaching into the inner pocket of my suit jacket, because I wanted the truth in full. And now I have it. I pulled out the envelope, thick, official, sealed with a federal stamp. Lisa's lips parted. Her nostrils flared. That smile was long gone. "This," I said, stepping forward and holding it out to her, "is for you. From the United States government." And just then, the doors at the rear of the room opened. 2 plainclothes agents stepped inside, followed by a uniformed officer in navy and gold. The room exploded in whispers. Lisa didn't reach for the envelope. Her eyes locked on the agents behind me. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Agent Miranda stepped forward, badge out. "Lisa Foster," she said, voice calm, clear, professional. "You're under arrest for federal fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse of a senior citizen." That phrase, financial abuse of a senior citizen. The humiliation landed like a slap. She backed away instinctively, knocking over a flute of champagne. It shattered at her feet. People gasped. A woman in the corner started crying. Our granddaughter clutched at her mother's leg, confused. Lisa turned to me, face twisted, fury leaking through the cracks. "You set me up," she hissed. "I let you expose yourself," I said. They cuffed her gently, respectfully, though there was nothing respectful about the moment. Her hands were behind her back before she could utter another lie. She looked at me once more, eyes burning. She wasn't sorry. She was caught. And for Lisa, that was the unforgivable part. The room was chaos now. Some guests shouted. Some just stared. My son stepped forward, confused and pale. "Dad, what the hell is going on?" But I didn't answer, because part of me was still watching her being let out. Still watching the woman I married become someone else entirely. Someone I never really knew. Someone who would have drained me to the bone and left me smiling, clueless, applauding her all the while. And for the first time in years, I felt powerful. But it was only the beginning. They took her out through the side exit, the one near the kitchen where the servers usually sneak in and out for smoke breaks. I didn't move. I didn't follow. I just stood there, still holding the empty glass like it meant something, like the toast hadn't become a funeral bell halfway through. People were shouting now, asking questions I couldn't answer yet. My daughter was crying, mascara bleeding into her cheeks. My son stood still, white as the damn tablecloths, looking at me like he didn't recognize the man in front of him. And maybe he didn't, because the man I was when I walked into that ballroom no longer existed. That man believed in love that endured. That man trusted the woman he had shared a bed with for 40 years. That man would have rather die quietly in betrayal than speak one word that might embarrass her. But that man was dead, and what stood there now was someone sharper, someone awake, someone who'd learned painfully that evil doesn't always wear fangs. Sometimes it wears pearls and bakes casseroles and remembers your dentist appointments better than you do. Agent Miranda gave me a nod as she left with her team. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. You did the right thing. But right and easy don't always live in the same house. And as I stood there in the wreckage of the party that was supposed to be our triumph, I wasn't sure if I felt vindicated or just hollow. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until I tried to set the glass down and it clinked against the table hard enough to turn heads. "She's your wife," someone snapped. A friend of hers, Ellen or Eleanor or something. Wore purple a lot. Never liked me. You humiliated her in front of everyone. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "She robbed me for 6 years. Forged documents. Opened accounts behind my back. Lied to our family. What would you have done, Eleanor?" She blinked. Her mouth opened, then closed. My son stepped in then, guiding me away from the crowd with a hand on my shoulder, like I was some war vet who'd wandered into the wrong parade. "Dad, come on. Sit down. Please." I let him, but the weight didn't leave my chest. We sat at an empty table near the far wall, away from the mess of guests trying to decide whether to stick around or escape the awkwardness. My daughter eventually joined us. She didn't speak. Just looked at me with these watery eyes that asked why. So I told them. Not all of it, but enough. I told them about the stolen checks, the hidden account, the investigator, the photos, the FBI. My daughter started crying again. She didn't scream, didn't call me a liar, just sat there and let the illusion crumble around her. "She used us," I said. "She used me. And if I didn't do this now, she would have disappeared with every cent I ever earned and left me too old and too tired to chase her." My son nodded slowly, like someone realizing the monster in the closet wasn't imaginary. "But why the party?" he asked. "Why like that?" I took a breath. Because she wanted to be the center of attention. She needed to be adored. And the only way to make her fall was to let her climb to the highest place first. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about truth. And truth hurts, especially when you've built a lifetime on lies. After the guests thinned out, and the caterers started packing up uneaten finger food in champagne bottles, I walked through the hall like it was a battlefield. Half-drunk glasses, fallen napkins, the sharp stink of spilled alcohol and cheap perfume. It looked like a celebration that had aged into a crime scene. I found her phone on the floor beneath her chair. Unlocked. Of course. She never thought she'd need to hide it from me anymore. I scrolled through her recent messages. Most were mundane. Group chats. Shopping lists. A snippy exchange with her cousin about potato salad. But buried under all that was a chain of texts labeled D. Heller. 3 more weeks. I'll have the rest. Don't book anything until I say. Use the second account. He still doesn't know. And the last one, dated 4 days before the party. It's almost done. He'll never see it coming. I stared at that sentence like it was carved into bone. She had planned to leave. She wasn't just playing both sides, she was orchestrating her escape down to the day. Maybe the party was her endgame. Maybe she thought she'd make a speech, kiss the grandkids, disappear the next morning while I snored in our bed, thinking the world was finally right again. She didn't know I'd been awake for weeks. And now? Now she was behind a locked door, wearing zip-tied wrists, and facing a list of charges that would shred her carefully curated mask in a federal courtroom. But I wasn't done yet. Because if Lisa had one secret, I knew she had more. And I was going to find every last one of them. The house was too quiet when I walked in later that night. Too still, like it was holding its breath. For 40 years, Lisa's presence had saturated every corner. Her scent in the bathroom, her humming in the kitchen, her damn slippers always right in the doorway, so I'd trip on them at least once a week. But now it felt like stepping into the hollowed-out carcass of something I used to love. Familiar, but empty. Too empty. I set her phone down on the kitchen counter and just stared at it for a moment. The last message glared at me from the screen. "It's almost done. He'll never see it coming." Well, guess what, Lisa? I saw it. And I stopped it. But stopping it wasn't enough anymore. There was a new itch under my skin now. A question I hadn't let myself ask fully until that moment. What else didn't I know? Because the thing about liars like Lisa is they never have just one secret. It's a web, and you never notice it until you're already caught in it. And by then, you're halfway to being consumed. I made coffee. Didn't need it. I was already wired, but my hands needed something to do. I stood at the sink, looking out at the yard I'd mowed 1,000 times. The wind rustled the trees. It was too calm for the kind of storm I was about to step into. I took her phone upstairs and sat on the edge of our bed. Our bed. Jesus. I reached beneath the mattress instinctively, right where she always kept her emergency money. A thin envelope used to be there. Gone now. Had been gone a while, probably. My stomach twisted. The more I looked around, the more I saw signs I'd missed. Closet hangers with nothing on them. One suitcase missing from the attic. A stack of old family photos I'd always kept on the dresser, missing. But not all of them. Just the ones with me in them. She'd been erasing me long before today. I opened her photo gallery. Nothing. Wiped clean. But the cloud backup? That still had traces. Screenshots of banking apps. A plane ticket confirmation to Boise under the name Linda Foster. Booked for tomorrow morning. Her escape was booked. Set. Lined up to the hour. But what stopped me cold wasn't that. It was a picture I found buried deep in a folder marked work stuff. I tapped it open and stared, breath caught in my throat. It was a photo of me, taken from behind. At the DMV. I remembered that day. I had gone to renew my license, thought I'd dropped my wallet. Spent 30 minutes retracing my steps. I didn't notice anyone taking pictures. But here it was. Lisa had been following me, watching me, documenting me like I was some mark in a long con. Why? Why take a picture of me standing in line? Then I saw the second one. Me again. In the driveway. Carrying a box from the garage. The third? Me asleep in my chair. She had been building something. Collecting something. It wasn't just financial. This was layered. Methodical. This was planning. Surveillance. This was predatory. I plugged her phone into my laptop and pulled everything I could. Documents. Notes. Draft emails she never sent. One caught my eye. It was in the trash folder. No recipient. Just a subject line. Confession. Keep for lawyer. I opened it. It was unfinished. But what was there? It chilled me to the bone. He's too trusting. I never meant to hurt him. Not at first. But then it got easy. Too easy. Every time I thought he'd catch on, he'd just smile and thank me for the coffee. I think part of him knows he's being used. But maybe that's what he wants. To feel needed, even if it's not real. That line broke something in me. Even if it's not real. She didn't just betray me. She understood how to betray me. She didn't think I was stupid. She thought I was desperate. She thought I'd choose the illusion. That I'd cling to the lie just to keep the image of us intact. I closed the laptop slowly. My heartbeat was in my ears. I could hear the blood moving in my head, like waves. She thought I'd never leave her. She thought I'd never fight back. And she was almost right. But I had one advantage she didn't count on. I had nothing left to lose. And that makes a man very, very dangerous. I made a decision right then and there. No more waiting. No more reacting. I was going to Idaho. I wanted to look Dale Heller in the eye. The man she funneled my money to. The man who knew about me, knew I existed, and still helped her dig the grave I was supposed to lie down in. I wasn't calling the cops. I wasn't hiring more lawyers. I was going myself. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about answers. And I didn't care how deep I had to dig to get them. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not my kids. Not the FBI. Not even the investigator I'd hired who, just days ago, had told me to sit tight and let the system handle it. Let the system work. The same system that let Lisa steal over 80 grand from me without raising a single damn red flag. No. I was done waiting. I packed light. A small duffel bag, my laptop, and a printed dossier I had assembled from weeks of quiet gathering, bank records, real estate listings, intercepted emails, and one screenshot that never left my front pocket. Dale Heller's smug face cropped from a security cam still outside a realty office in Boise. I stared at that face the whole flight. It wasn't the face of a mastermind. It wasn't slick or impressive. It was the face of a man who thought he was invisible, thought he could drift in and out of lives like fog, leaving behind nothing but ruin and forgotten names. But he forgot one thing. He wasn't messing with some lonely old fool. He was messing with a man who had 40 years of his life stolen and nothing but time and rage left to spend. When I landed, I didn't go to a hotel. I went straight to the address listed on a utility bill I'd pulled from Lisa's email history. An apartment complex tucked behind a strip mall. Gray and dull, the kind of place where neighbors never speak and mailboxes rust shut before someone notices. Unit 209. I waited in my rental car for 2 hours. Watched people come and go. One woman walked a poodle in a sweater. A delivery guy dropped off a bag of Chinese food. But no Dale. No sign of Lisa either. It was almost 10 at night when the lights flicked on in 209. I got out. Heart steady. Rage clean. There was a black Honda in the spot marked for that unit. Same plate as the one from the DMV parking lot. Lisa had driven that car the same day she followed me and took those pictures. She had been here before. Recently. So I walked up the stairs and knocked. No hesitation. No plan beyond knocking. The door opened a few inches. A chain across the frame. A man peeked through. Gray hair. Early 60s. Wore a threadbare college sweatshirt and smelled faintly of cigarettes and old coffee. I knew the face. Dale Heller. I asked calmly. He blinked. Who's asking? My name is Greg Foster. He didn't react. Not at first. But his eyes narrowed a split second too late. He knew. He knew my name. I smiled. Your friend Lisa's in federal custody, I said. She won't be joining you. The chain didn't move. Neither did he. But his face turned pale. It was like I'd thrown cold water right through the door. She told me you were dead, he said. I blinked. Excuse me. That you passed years ago. Stroke or something. She said she was your widow. I stood there stunned. Not because I believed him, but because that lie made everything else fall into place. She didn't just steal from me. She didn't cheat on me. She erased me. She built a life here as a grieving widow. Spent my money pretending I was already in the ground. My voice dropped. You believe that? He shrugged. She had pictures. Obituary clippings. Even had your urn on the shelf. I didn't ask questions. I laughed. A bitter, stunned, awful laugh. You didn't ask questions, but you took the money. He looked down. Yeah, there it was. No apology. No excuse. Just yeah. Like it was change at a register. Like it wasn't decades of my life and trust burned into ash. I stepped closer. You didn't think it was odd that a dead man's pension was still coming in? He flinched. Just barely. She said it was some glitch in the system. She kept saying it would stop eventually. I nodded slowly. My chest felt tight. My knuckles whitened. She tell you we had kids? He shook his head. She tell you about the family she destroyed? The life she took apart piece by piece while you played house in this rat hole? Still nothing. He just stood there like a man waiting for an avalanche to stop mid-slide. I should beat you into the floor, I whispered. But you're not worth the bruises. And I meant it. I didn't need to hit him. I was the storm now. I left without another word. But the moment I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered anyway. A voice, low, tired, familiar, crackled through the speaker. Greg, Lisa said. They gave me one call. I didn't speak. She filled the silence. You made your point. You got your show. But you don't understand what's coming. What does that mean? You really think it ends with me? She hung up. The line went dead. And the street suddenly felt a whole lot darker. I stood there in the Idaho cold, phone still pressed to my ear long after the call had ended, like some fool who believed if I just held still long enough, maybe the silence would say something. But it didn't. All I had was her voice echoing in my skull. You really think it ends with me? It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a statement. A calm, measured reminder that Lisa Foster, my wife, my betrayer, was never just a suburban housewife with sticky notes and frozen lasagna. She was a planner. A chess player. And chess players don't move without knowing what the board looks like 10 turns ahead. I got back into the rental car and sat in the dark, fingers gripping the wheel like I was trying to squeeze blood from it. My mind raced. If she wasn't bluffing, if there really was more, what the hell had I missed? I turned the car off and grabbed my laptop. Parked in the glow of a nearby street lamp, I tethered it to my phone and logged back into the cloud storage I'd yanked from Lisa's phone before the feds took it. The folder labeled Taxes 2018 didn't actually have tax forms. It had PDFs, contracts, power of attorney templates, even something that looked like a living will. Signed. By me. Except I never signed it. It had my name. My signature. My handwriting, even. But I never wrote those things. Lisa had forged every inch of it. She'd planned not just for a divorce. Not just to flee. She was building a legal death for me. That urn Dale mentioned? It wasn't just a prop. She had documents ready to legally declare me deceased. She must have started it years ago, paving the way, bit by bit, so that when she vanished with my money, Nobody would come looking. Because to the system, I was already gone. And if she had succeeded, there would be no more Greg Foster. Just a digital ghost with no bank accounts, no assets, no voice. My breath came shallow. I hadn't just escaped a betrayal. I'd narrowly escaped erasure. I emailed everything to Agent Miranda with the subject, "You missed something." Then I drove. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Into the night, headlights casting narrow tunnels through the dark. I needed time to think. I needed the noise of tires on road, the hum of nothingness to keep me from screaming. I stopped at a 24-hour diner somewhere near the Oregon border. Ordered bad coffee and worse eggs. The waitress didn't ask questions. She probably thought I was a trucker or some divorced sad sack on a long haul. She wasn't wrong. As I sat there, one thought clawed to the surface. She wasn't working alone. Dale was a pawn. A willing pawn, sure. But still a pawn. A guy like him didn't know how to fake death certificates or siphon retirement payments from the government without getting caught for 6 years. And Lisa? She was smart, but she wasn't that smart. Someone helped her. And if there was someone else, they were still out there. I opened my laptop again, tracing through the remaining messages in her phone. Most were innocuous. A few from Dale. Some relatives. Spam. Then one caught my eye. A contact labeled M. Elroy. Just a few messages. No media. No context. M. Elroy. Still on schedule? Lisa. Yes. The transfer's clean. He's in the dark. M. Elroy. He better stay that way. That was from 4 months ago. This wasn't just about money. This was a full-blown operation. A scheme to disappear a man. To turn a living, breathing person into a legal corpse so his assets could be liquidated without a whisper of suspicion. And that's when it hit me. My house. My will. Lisa didn't just want to vanish. She wanted everything in my name converted to hers, legally. If she had waited just a few more months, I would have been declared missing. Unresponsive. Probably mentally unfit. And the courts would have handed her control of everything. I wouldn't just be ruined. I'd be deleted. I paid the bill, left cash on the counter, and walked out into the icy wind. My phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I answered. But this time, it wasn't Lisa. A man's voice. Smooth, practiced. "Mr. Foster, I suggest you stop digging." I froze. Who is this? A long pause. Then, "People like you don't know how deep this goes. You think you've won something, but all you've done is open a door you don't know how to close." The line went dead. And just like that, the chessboard flipped. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was a war. I sat in the car for an hour after that call, engine off, breath fogging up the windshield. My hands didn't shake. Not anymore. That phase had passed. Now everything inside me was sharpened, burned down to muscle and resolve. I'd been lied to, stolen from, erased, and now threatened. Threatened by a voice that knew my name, my movements, my level. "People like you don't know how deep this goes." That's what he said. Not how far. Not how bad. How deep. That told me everything. This wasn't just Lisa and her twisted plot to disappear me. This was an infrastructure. A system built to hide crimes in plain sight, slip women like her through the cracks, and burn people like me into ghost ash. I wasn't supposed to live long enough to ask questions. I wasn't supposed to fight. But I was still here. And now I had a name. M. Elroy. I drove back to Boise before the sun came up, parked outside a greasy spoon with free Wi-Fi, and got to work. I searched every variation I could think of Elroy. M. Elroy. Elroy and Associates. Elroy Financial. Even Elroy Probate Law. And finally, I found it. A small legal consultancy buried under 2 layers of shell corporations listed on a building directory downtown. Elroy Solutions, LLC. No website. No reviews. Just a street address and a phone number that went to a voicemail box that never identified itself. I printed what I found. Every page. Every address. Every inkling of paper trail I could dig up. I walked into a local FedEx print center and asked for the thickest envelope they had. I mailed it all to Agent Miranda. With a note. "They're still active. I'm not backing down. You shouldn't either." Then I got a hotel room under a fake name, first time in my life I'd ever done that. Not because I was hiding, but because I knew they were watching now. Whoever they were. Lisa had a plan to vanish me, and that plan had backup. Professionals. People who knew how to make it look like I wandered off, forgot my name, maybe drank too much and slipped into a river one night. Not happening. Not now. I spent the next 2 days digging. I walked by the Elroy office 5 times a day. I never saw anyone go in. No signage. Just a black door with a buzzer. I called the number twice from burner phones. No answer. Then, on the third night, someone slipped a note under my hotel door. No return address. Just a handwritten line. You're not the first. You won't be the last. Turn around. I stared at it. Plain white paper. No fingerprints. Whoever left it knew what they were doing. Which meant they were close. Which meant, somewhere between the diner, the print shop, and the hotel, I had been followed. And I didn't even feel it. That scared me. But fear wasn't going to stop me. Not now. Because that note? It was a crack in the facade. Proof that I was rattling something. That I wasn't just some angry old man with a vendetta. I was a threat. And I was getting close to something they didn't want me to see. I needed eyes. I needed leverage. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. A man named Raymond Delaney. We served together in Germany back in '84. After the army, he went one way, I went another. He joined private security. Then government contracts. Then, off the map. I heard whispers over the years, Panama, Yemen, backroom stuff the newspapers only hint at. I left him a voicemail. Ray, it's Greg. You once said if I ever called, it better be serious. This is me calling. It's serious. He called back 6 minutes later. You alive? He asked. Barely. You need muscle or information? Both. Talk to me. So I did. Told him everything. From the stolen checks to the forged death, to the man at the door in Boise, to the blocked call and the name, M. Elroy. Ray didn't laugh. Didn't grunt. Just let out a low whistle. You stepped in it. I know. No, he said. I mean deep. These aren't amateurs. If Elroy's involved, you're dealing with asset siphoning networks. Probate scams. Elder targeting ops. They profile guys like you for years. Map out every weakness. So Lisa wasn't even the one who came up with all this? Oh, she probably started it. But at some point, she handed the ball to professionals. And those guys? They don't let go easy. Can you help? Ray didn't hesitate. Send me everything. I'll get eyes on Elroy. But Greg, if this goes how I think it goes, you're not just a case anymore. You're a witness. Which means they might want you dead for real this time. I figured. Then don't stay in one place too long. And don't trust anyone you didn't know before this started. I hung up, sat on the edge of the hotel bed, heart pounding not with fear, but clarity. They wanted to erase me? Too late. I'm on every phone now. Every email. I've got files duplicated and cloud-backed in 4 locations. I've got names, addresses, faces. If they want a war, they've got one. And I'm not dying quiet. 2 days later, I checked out of the hotel before sunrise, tossing the sheets like I was stripping away another layer of the man I used to be. My rental car had a scrape down the driver's side that wasn't there the night before. No note. No explanation. Just a quiet message. We know where you sleep. They were circling. Good. Let them come. I drove east. Nowhere specific. Just out. Through farmland, past gas stations that hadn't updated their signs in 10 years, into parts of Idaho where you can see a man coming a mile away, no shadows to hide in. I pulled into a tiny town called Carver's Hollow. Population under 200. 1 gas pump. A diner that doubled as a post office. I picked it not because it was safe, but because it was isolated. I needed time to think. To prepare. Ray had gone dark after our last call, which meant one of 2 things. He was either tailing someone or being tailed himself. Either way, I couldn't sit idle. I had to keep pushing. I set up in the back corner of the diner, ordered black coffee, laid my laptop out, and slipped in my earphones like I was just some retired guy checking fantasy football stats. But my screen was lit up with spreadsheets, timelines, name trees. I was building a map of Lisa's betrayal. It started with her, but it spread. From Lisa to Dale Heller. From Dale to M. Elroy. And now? There were others. I found 3 more identities linked to the same Idaho bank account where my Social Security checks had been deposited. 3 women. All over 60. All legally widowed. All with husbands who had died mysteriously or were missing and presumed so. But here's the kicker. Two of those men were still alive. I found one. A retired dentist named Arthur Lang, declared mentally incompetent after a fall at his lake house. Signed power of attorney? You guessed it, his wife, with Elroy Solutions filing the paperwork. Arthur now lived in a state-run facility in Montana. Sedated. Forgotten. I called the number listed on his intake record. Pretended I was his cousin. They said Arthur didn't speak anymore. That he stared at windows. That he sometimes cried in his sleep. My blood boiled. I knew then, Lisa wasn't some outlier. She was a model. A prototype that worked. And Elroy? He scaled it. Like a business. Find an aging spouse with assets. Isolate them. Bleed them. Then bury them in legal fog while the wolves feast. Lisa wasn't a bitch. She was a recruit. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something horrifying. I don't think she ever loved me. I think I was selected. 40 years ago. A steady, quiet man. Loyal. Predictable. Low risk. Military background. Government pension. No history of cheating. No substance abuse. A man who would never suspect the woman he loved was grooming him for decades. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a harvest. She sowed me with affection. Nurtured the image. Then, when the soil was rich and the fruit ripe, she started cutting pieces off for the market. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence of that thought. This wasn't a story of a midlife affair or a greedy spouse with sticky fingers. This was a machine. And I was the wrench. Just then, the bell above the diner door jingled. A man walked in. Black windbreaker. Baseball cap. Average build. Looked like someone's uncle. He glanced at me once, then sat 2 booths down, back to the window. Didn't order. Didn't speak. Just watched. I kept my hands calm, eyes on my coffee. But every instinct from my army days screamed the same thing. This guy's not here for lunch. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then he stood up, left a 20 on the table, no food, no drink, and walked out the way he came. I gave it a count of 60 before moving. Outside, I caught sight of him driving off in a dark SUV. No plates. Just the hint of a radio antenna on the rear glass. I went back inside, nodded to the waitress, and said, "Hey, weird question, do you know that guy?" She blinked. "What guy?" There was a man sitting 2 booths down from me. Just now. She tilted her head. "There's been nobody but you in here for over an hour, Han." My blood iced over. I turned. Looked again. The booth was clean. No 20. No indent on the cushion. I walked outside. No tire marks. No engine noise. Nothing. They were playing with me. Testing me. Maybe even hallucinating me. Gaslighting wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was just small shifts, memories bending, reality twisting, just enough to make you question your senses. But I didn't question it. I knew what I saw. They wanted me scared. Off balance. Talking crazy so I'd discredit myself. But they underestimated something. You can't rattle a man who's already crawled out of his own grave. I checked out of Carver's Hollow that night. Next stop, Montana. I was going to find Arthur Lang. If they'd done to him what Lisa tried to do to me, then I was going to take their whole rotten structure and bring the damn thing crashing down. Arthur Lang didn't recognize me when I walked into his room. He didn't recognize anyone. Room 216. Meadow Pines Assisted Living. Clean place, neutral smells, bored staff with hollow smiles. Arthur sat in a recliner by the window, staring through the glass like it owed him an explanation. He wore slippers, flannel pajama pants, and a t-shirt with a faded logo from a dental convention that probably happened 15 years ago. His mouth hung slightly open. His eyes, gray, watery, tracked movement but didn't see. I said his name 3 times before he flinched. Arthur. Arthur Lang. He blinked. Slow. Like dragging thought through molasses. Then, the faintest nod. That was all I needed. I pulled up a chair. "My name is Greg Foster," I said. "You don't know me. But I know what happened to you. Or at least, some of it. And I think it's still happening to others." His eyes didn't move, but his jaw twitched. A tear leaked out of one eye, slid down his cheek, and disappeared into the collar of his shirt. That told me everything. Arthur wasn't gone. He was trapped. I talked for almost 20 minutes. Told him about Lisa. About the account in his name. About the photos. The patterns. The fake documents. I told him he wasn't crazy. That he hadn't imagined it. That someone, Maybe multiple people had engineered his fall, declared him incompetent, and sold off everything he worked for. When I finally stopped, he spoke. Barely a whisper. They made me forget things. My skin crawled. What do you mean? Pills. Said it was for sleep. For nerves. But I started. He struggled for words, fingers twitching. I started. Slipping. Couldn't remember numbers. Then names. Then faces. I leaned forward, heart pounding. Who gave you the pills? Arthur? Was it your wife? He nodded. She said the doctor prescribed it. But I never saw one. Of course he didn't. They doped him into submission. Chemically exiled him from his own mind until he couldn't protest when the paperwork was signed, the accounts drained, and the house sold for cash. All legal. All by the book. I left his room with my fists clenched so tight my fingernails cut into my palms. I didn't even notice the blood until I reached the parking lot. This was bigger than I thought. It wasn't just about fraud. It was about silencing, killing people slowly without leaving a mark, letting them rot behind care home doors while their spouses and partners collected payouts and played victim. I sat in the car, shaking. Then I pulled out my phone and called Ray. He picked up on the first ring. I found him, I said. Lang's alive. Sedated. Broken. But aware. Ray was silent for a moment. Then, I've got something too. You're not gonna like it. What? Elroy's not a guy. My brain stuttered. What do you mean? Elroy is a shell. A legal fiction. The name belongs to a law group in Nevada. But the real operator? It's a woman. Real name, Martha Winslow. Used to be a state administrator for long-term care facilities. Got quietly fired 10 years ago for mismanagement, but she landed softly. Private sector. Started building the scam with women like Lisa. He paused. And Greg? Lisa didn't stumble into this. Martha recruited her. Over 20 years ago. I sat there, stunned. 20 years. Lisa and I had still been celebrating our anniversary at Red Lobster, drinking cheap wine and pretending we were middle-class royalty, all while she was being groomed to gut me from the inside. Ray went on. Martha's moved everything to a private estate just outside Salt Lake City. No digital footprint. But I've got a location. I didn't hesitate. Send it. You sure? Positive. I'll meet you there, he said. Then hung up. I didn't go back to the hotel. I didn't stop for food. I drove all night, adrenaline burning through my veins like rocket fuel. Salt Lake glowed on the horizon as the sun started to rise. And somewhere in that glowing sprawl was the woman who had built the machine that almost erased me, who trained my wife to smile while robbing me blind, who sold my life in pieces to people who would never know my name. She didn't know I was coming, but she would soon, and when I walked through her door, it wouldn't be with apologies. It would be with truth, sharper than any knife, and I was going to bury it in her empire. The house sat on a hill like it owned the sky. Clean lines. Modern stone. Security cameras tucked discreetly into the eaves. Not a mansion too smart for that. It was a compound, designed not to impress, but to repel. No name on the gate. No driveway buzzer. Just high fencing, motion lights, and a silence that dared you to cross it. I parked 2 blocks away. Ray met me on foot, dressed like any middle-aged hiker. Windbreaker, ball cap, and a canvas bag slung over one shoulder. But what was inside that bag? That was federal-level serious. Backup files. Disguised surveillance gear. Possibly a weapon. You ready for this? He asked. No, I said. But I'm going in anyway. We watched the place for 2 hours from a ridge. One car came and went, a black Mercedes with temp plates. No markings. No visitors. No deliveries. Then, at 11:04 a.m., the front door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-60s. Gray hair tied back. Long beige coat. She lit a cigarette with perfect calm, gazing over the valley below like she owned it. Martha Winslow, Ray confirmed. She ran a quiet scam for decades. Outlasted investigators. Buried whistleblowers. She thinks she's untouchable. She isn't. He handed me an earpiece. I'll be your eye. You get the evidence. You get her to talk. And if she runs. I nodded. Then I bring her down. I walked the perimeter until I found a section of fence low enough to climb. Slipped over, silent. No dogs. No alarms. Ray had mapped every camera. Every blind spot. I moved through her yard like a ghost. The back door was unlocked. Of course it was. These people never expect anyone to fight back. Inside, the house was clinical. Minimal. Everything in its place. Cold like a showroom. No family photos. No warmth. Just files. Books. Devices. A life lived in secrecy. I found her in the study, watching security footage on a widescreen monitor, my face frozen on the screen from just minutes ago. She didn't flinch. Didn't scream. Just turned, cigarette still glowing between her fingers, and said, "I knew you'd come." I shut the door behind me. No guards. She smiled. "I don't need them. You're not a killer, Mr. Foster." "You sure about that?" She regarded me like I was a student late to class. "You're angry. You've been humiliated. But you still believe in rules. That's your flaw. You trained her." She tilted her head. "Lisa? Please." Lisa was a natural. All I did was give her direction. "You turned her into a thief." "I turned her into a survivor," she said coolly. "You think what she did to you is personal?" "It was statistical. We model men like you. Predict your emotional trajectory to within a 5-day window. You're loyal. You don't cheat. You don't leave. You cling. And that's why it worked. You sedated Arthur Lang. You wiped him out." She laughed. "He drank. We just accelerated the decline. You're disgusting. I'm efficient. This country warehouses its old. We gave them purpose. Lisa didn't steal from you. She recycled you. That was it." I hit record on the hidden mic Ray gave me. "You know this is all going to the FBI, right?" Her expression didn't change. "I'll be out by noon," she said. "They'll make noise. But you think a grand jury in Utah is going to understand a scheme this sophisticated? No violence. No bodies. Just paperwork and signatures. We're not criminals. We're visionaries." I stepped forward. "You made one mistake." "Which was?" "You tried it on a man who still had fight in him." I pulled out the envelope. Signed statements. Audio from Arthur. Screenshots. Transaction histories. Proof of Lisa's connection to Martha. Names. Dates. I dropped it on her lap. Then Ray's voice buzzed in my ear. "Feds are en route. 10 minutes out." Martha picked up the envelope, flipped through the pages slowly. Her fingers didn't shake, but something in her eyes cracked. Just a sliver. Just enough. "You'll go down with this," she said. "You exposed yourself. Publicly. That toast stunt? The press will eat you alive." "I hope they do," I said. "I want the world to see what you people are. I want every son, every husband, every daughter to look twice before trusting the caretaker who smiles too much." Siren wails curled in the distance. Martha leaned back in her chair. Smiled. Lit another cigarette. "I suppose we've both played our final move," she said. "No," I whispered. "I've still got one left." And I walked out. The agents swarmed the house. She didn't resist. They never do. They know their power lies in silence, in confusion, in making victims second-guess themselves until it's too late. But not this time. I gave my statement. Turned over the evidence. Ray vanished into whatever shadows he calls home now. Lisa was already deep in pretrial hearings. Her face plastered across tabloids, labeled the Black Widow of Oregon. Her eyes? Hollow. She didn't smile at the cameras anymore. And me? I didn't go home. I bought a small cabin up in Montana. Near the water. Near peace. I keep a copy of that subpoena framed on the wall. Under it, a simple line carved into the wood. I was meant to disappear, but I didn't, and I never will.